Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today we're going to be talking about X-Wing. We've got a lot of news and things that have just happened over the last week or so, and we're going to touch on those. There's been a really big piece of controversy in the X-Wing community related to initiative, so we're going to be talking about that. If you guys are new here to the channel, there's a huge giveaway going on for 50,000 subscribers. We are giving away a lightsaber. If you want to win a lightsaber, all you have to do is be a subscriber, leave a comment on this or one of my videos. There's more details for that on Crabbok.com. If you want to know when the winner's being announced and all that other stuff, head over to Crabbok.com. But basically, long story short, you've got to be a subscriber and you've got to leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. All right, let's go ahead and start talking about this. Also, I do want to actually thank our sponsor, Luxury Playstyle. They have amazing X-Wing tokens. If you haven't already checked these out, please head over to luxuryplaystyle.com. Browse the X-Wing tokens. They're all double-sided, full metal tokens. They're heavy. They're luxurious. They're exquisite. You are going to absolutely love these tokens. Also, if you use code Crabbok VIP, you're going to save 15%. So definitely use that code. Let your stores know to check these out. They make excellent prize support. And on orders of $35 or more while supplies last, you're going to get a free lightsaber nunchuck token with the Crabbok logo on that. That's going to actually be a nice way to mark critical hits, as well as lots of other uses for various games. Plus, it's light side versus dark side. You know, you've got tons of uses for that, but it's a really cool token as well. So check out luxuryplaystyle.com. All right, so well, you know, AMG kind of started some interesting news cycles with a couple of, like, there was a Legion rules reference that dropped. We got this notice here that said, hey, we don't know when things are coming out. It basically says, hey, we know you're all eager to get your hands on our upcoming products. However, ongoing shipping and logistics issues have made release dates for our products extremely difficult to predict. While we set what we hope will be worldwide release dates for every product, these dates are often adjusted by local distributors based on their individual situations. We appreciate your patience as these issues persist. Not really controversial right there, although it is a bummer for a lot of people if you're hoping for something. Now, fortunately for X-Wing, there's nothing like supposed to be coming out right now. As far as I know, most of the stuff that, you know, has recently come out is out all around the world. I'm not sure about certain countries. Every once in a while, there's like certain orders that just don't make it where they're supposed to make it. We're seeing that right now for some products in North America that just don't show up here for other games, but this will probably have an effect when the Razor Crest and the Gauntlet and stuff try to come out. It's going to be really hard to predict those products. Also, there's an OP kit that got teased, and we're going to talk more about that in another video, but basically all the alternate art cards and all the full, the full art, the obstacle cards or device cards rather are in there, and that's like, it's really cool stuff, and so that's pretty nice, but it is kind of like AMG's version of their OP kit, and that it's not really like tournament support. It's now just let's play Aces High. But then we also got a rules reference guide that talks a little bit about certain obstacles and clarifications on the chaff cloud and some delayed fuses. And so there's, so we also got a rules reference guide for X-Wing. And so on top of all of that, they go back to the rules changes about initiative, and they had some and I'm getting there because this is crazy. AMG had some technical difficulties, I guess extreme winds, and they had a problem doing live streams. So instead of doing the X-Wing live stream that was going to demo these proposed new rules, they just linked us the new rules. So let's talk about this. And if you haven't already seen it, buckle your seatbelts. Okay, so here we go. This is one snippet. There's more than just this. X-Wing's played over a series of rounds. Each round consists of 5 phases. Let's talk about the planning phase. Players choose maneuvers for their ships using maneuver dials. Okay. Once dials have been set, players roll to determine player order for the round as described of the determined player order step of setup. There should be a pause right here. This is talking about initiative, right? So if you're not an X-Wing player, there used to be something called pilot skill. It's now called initiative. Every pilot has a number after their name, and if there's a tie, then that's where, you know, the player order comes into effect. If there's not any ties, then this really doesn't matter. But a lot of games have ties, especially for the ace play, the initiative 5s and 6s. There's usually ties around there. or sometimes there's really ties for the lower initiatives as well. And but this is really important because it says once dials have been set, players roll to determine order for the round as described in the determine player order step of setup. So first off, they did say there would be no more bids for first player, right? This is something they said, last mini extravaganza, and a lot of people were like, "Whoa, that's a big change," because bidding for first player was a big part of your build, but it was never guaranteed. So that didn't feel like it was. It felt like a significant change, but it didn't feel like it was going to completely break everything. In fact, some people really liked it. But this, you don't know if you're going to have initiative until after you've already locked in your dials, and so. This and then you're going to be so that's interesting. Then how do you determine player order? You have to roll 3. Each player has to roll 3 attack dice. So there's 6 dice being rolled. And the player with the most critical results is the first player. If there's a tie, then the player with the most eyeball results is the first player. If there's still a tie, the player with the most hit results is the first player. If there's still a tie, players re-roll and decide until the dice follow one of the rules above and the tie is broken. This is a extremely complicated way to flip a coin, isn't it? This is an extreme. I mean, look, this is completely unnecessary because you already have a 50-50 dice mechanic, and it's just, all right, you say hit or not hit. Boom. There's 4 hits on the die. Roll an attack die. If it's a hit, you get it. If it's not a hit, I get it. You've already got a 50-50 option. Like this should be, this is all completely really complex and unnecessary. But this is what it is, right? So there we go. And you can do this every round. And after all ships have dials assigned to them, players roll to determine player order for the round. Note that during the first round of the game, player order is determined during setup. After player order has been determined, play proceeds to the system phase. So in the first round of the game, you're still going to do it during setup. You're going to know who's going to have initiative, who's going to be the first player during setup. So the first round, you can actually set your dials and know who's going to go first. The one round where it doesn't matter really. You're too far away from. Most of the time. I mean, there are some corner cases where it might matter on first round, but generally. If the first round is the least significant round to have initiative, it's all the subsequent rounds where you're in shooting range or bumping range. So let's go back. This is a lot to take in. This constitutes maybe the most fundamental change that X-Wing has seen, in that this totally changes the mindset, but behind how you plan your movement. That's literally half of the game is. It's moving and shooting. At its core, X-Wing is a game of moving and shooting. And those were the very first things I ever heard about X-Wing when I watched Will Wheaton's tabletop episode where he played X-Wing. And that was my introduction to X-Wing, and I was hooked from that point from that point on. And it was so simple because he said it himself. X-Wing is a game of moving and shooting. You're going to move, and then after everybody moves, then we're going to shoot. And in this case, the moving now is random. And again, let me caveat, this is all based on only when there's ties, right? Only when the first player actually matters. You're still going to do things according to initiative order, but there are a lot of ties. It is very common for players to try to have aces or high initiative pilots in their builds. And so ties are extremely common. So in those cases, when you're getting close, when you're trying to joust, when you're getting dogfights, when you're planning your dial, when you're planning your move, you have to know who's going to move first, and in order to plan effectively. And that's one of the things. I'm not the best X-Wing player, right? And I know, and I learned this very early on. And when there was less ships, and it was easier for me to memorize every ship's movement capabilities and things like that. Early off in the days of 1.0, that was kind of the measure of what makes somebody good at the game versus what just makes somebody lucky. Is being able to plan maneuvers and try to predict what your opponent's going to do, and try to predict where you think your ship is going to be, and make sure that you're not bumping, not crashing into asteroids. And I certainly crashed into a lot of asteroids. But basically being able to plan your maneuver, making sure you're not bumping, making sure you have shots, making sure you're out of other people's arcs. Like planning the maneuver is like probably the only real skill in the game is planning those maneuvers. And now that is possibly going to be totally random. If you go up against a similar initiative build where there's a lot of ties, you won't know if you're going to go first and then you crash into somebody, or if they're going to go first and then you go first and then it's wide open. You don't know if you're going to try and do that K turn and actually be able to clear it, turn around and have a shot at their rear, or if you're going to go forward, be pointing against the edge of the board and now have a stress. And these are things that can make or break the game. So that's pretty interesting. And then moving on to this next slide, why is this so complicated as opposed, this kind of strikes me as like we want it to feel really like we spent a lot of time on this, when you could have just said flip a coin or just randomly determine. Like, honestly, they could have just dropped everything after the word player in the first line. Randomly determine the first player, period. We got it. We got it. We know how to randomly determine the first player. This is completely unnecessary, because there already was die tiebreakers. We've been doing it for years and years. You just roll the red die. That's it. Hit or not a hit. It's easy. Okay. And then the strangest thing to me is that it's still on the first turn. He is the only time you're actually going to know who's got initiative. Like when I'm the farthest away from you I can possibly be, that's when I know that I know that it's safe not to bump you. Like, that should be the other way around. That should be the only time. So yeah, this is just really interesting to me. The most significant part about this is that it's and here, and I'm going to get to the second part of this, because I don't think these are actually going to go into effect. I don't think these are actually going to see tournament legal status. I don't think so. So because of this, because it's after once dials have been set. If this was before dials had been set, it would still be a change to X-Wing, but it would be a change that still would involve player skill. And that's, I think, the biggest concern. Now people are furious about this. A lot of people are. People are not happy with this at all. As a matter of fact, multiple former X-Wing and FFG people have come out and said, like old FFG employees and stuff have said, like, basically the equivalent of, what the hell are you doing to AMG on this publicly? So, and I don't know what has been happening behind the scenes, but this is wild. So the good thing is that these are proposed changes. So I think that means that they don't have to lock this in. And this will be kind of a test of AMG's ability to receive community feedback on if they push this forward and this ends up as the new standard, what is this going to mean for X-Wing? Like, if you're an X-Wing player, I want to hear from you guys too. If you're not already, have you joined my Discord? I'd love to talk with you guys about it. We have X-Wing channels in there for sharing your pictures. We're talking about the game. They also Armada and Legion and other tabletop games. We've got a Halloween contest going on right now too, a painting contest, all kinds of cool stuff like that. So yeah, like, what do you think that if this does end up becoming like the rule? Gosh, I just can't imagine a lot of really serious X-Wing players kind of wanting to, keep playing at least at the same level, because like they would be taking skill out of the only part of the game that really requires skill. Rolling dice isn't a skill, It's bad enough that combat is so dice dependent. And there's always been that person in the community that sort of blames like their loss on the dice. When we always say, nah, dice is only a part of it. You still had to kind of set up the shots, and you still had to arc dodge, and you still had to get out of the way. But this turns that part into a dice-based mechanic as well. And so effectively, if I was going to exaggerate a little bit, I'd say, well, X-Wing is now just a dice game. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration, because there would still be skill in here for all those times that it's not an initiative tie, and all those matches where we don't have any matching pilot skill, we don't have any matching initiative across the board, then this won't matter. So that's at least something. But it shouldn't be, your game is either going to be skill based or dice based, depending on what your opponent brought. Like that's just crazy. So I feel like this would be a really, really bad change going forward. But I'd still like to hear what you guys think. There's been a lot. There's been a lot, and with this, let me know down in the comments. The discussion can also keep going over on Discord, so I would love to have you there. And that is gonna do it for today's video. This is I don't think it's gonna go live. Last thing I want to say is, do you think that AMG maybe like a nefarious plan? This is conspiracy theory here. Totally conspiracy theory. Do you think they proposed the change so over the top that they could then dial it back just a little bit to be like, oh, am I not reasonable? Of course, and then win the favor of people. I wonder, if my neighbor knows that I'm coming to demolish his fence, but then when I get there, I threaten to burn his house down, and then back off and say, okay, I'll just demolish your fence. He's going to be so relieved that I'm demolishing his fence, but I still get to demolish his fence. I don't even know why that makes sense. Why would I want to demolish somebody's fence? I try to come up with these analogies, and they just don't make sense. So let me just go ahead and take this time to end the video. I want to thank all my patrons. You guys are absolutely amazing, and thank you for your continued support. If you want to check out Patreon, there's links in the description below. And always remember, if you're going to demolish a fence, bring a sledgehammer, because that's crazy.